Good morning, fellow YouTubers and loyal subscribers. Thank you very much for the subscriptions. We do appreciate it. So today, I've got a bit of a dilemma. I've got no floor in our 1937 Ford. Right. The floor that was in here actually rotted out because the whole car was on the ground. Long story short, I'm going to take another car's floor instead of making a floor and adapt it to fit to his car. Let's get cracking. Just take my first measurement, 500. Okay. Anyway, why I'm doing this, it's a lot easier than making all the patterns and shape and all that. And this was a car on a local scrap metal. So yeah, I decided, let me have this floor. The Oaks had a big laugh and then they sold me the floor. Like you can see, it's roughly the shape. It's going to come up to about here before I need to make the floorboards, but I prefer that as I need to cut holes for floorboards and all that. We'll get into that later. Now I just want to get a floor inside the shell. Okay, now that we've got our length, our first length from the back, just mark here. Because this floor is not too bad. Actually ends right there. This one's not too bad. They actually cut it pretty square, these guys. It's about a mil too. Okay, we measure the distance from here to here. I'm gonna do all my measurements so I don't have to run up and down. As you recall, these soles I had to make to keep the body together because there was nothing underneath here. Let me just, every 100 about. We come to this side. Let's get to 1150. This floor should come to about here somewhere, if I recall. Because it has to go over the chassis as well. Oh, 185. Fill the corners. 1045. Okay. Now I can transfer all this to the floor's measurements. 1240. Just see. Let me just determine the center of this first. 240. Yes, I'll work from there. 245. So just go and get a square or a ruler. Right. Let's quickly have a look. I now chop them similar. $400 would be center, so 200 would be the center of that. Then I'll tape around 200's the center, so that should be dead center. Let's carry on to the front. We have still got to chop this piece of the bulge out. I'll probably grind it as well nicely before I paint this thing underneath. Today is just to get a piece of floor underneath this thing. 250. So 115. 115. Yeah, 115. That's perfect. That's the center of this. Alright, my chalk's not the sharpest, is it? Yeah, that's gonna be out. You just compensate for the chalk. I have to clean that just now. But there we go. Right. Now I'm gonna have to make a plan to treat this floor as if it has no bulge. Our measurements there. One way of doing it is to have something like that to be center. I can't square it out 100%, but I can be more or less center. Let me check our first measurement again. Okay, now I need to find the center for 1240 and work my ways to the sides. And then subtract for a quarter inch or 4 millimeter almost. We'll go a quarter inch, that's about 6 mils on both sides for the thickness of that material's lip. Okay, just get to 1240. There we go, 1240. Okay, let me work it out. It's going to be 500, 5, 10, 5, 10, 5, 1, 2. Okay, so 5, 1, 2. And then I can mark it out. Just get the 5, 1, 2 there about. Okay, now I can transfer that. Should be right on the edge there. That's perfect. Alright, now that I've basically marked it out, what I need, let me start chopping. And then I have to get the body on the floor on the chassis. So first I have to put the floor on the chassis, put the body over, see how it comes together, get the car to where I can weld this in. Gonna be a fun day. Right, seems more or less center. Let me also cross-reference it with my chassis. Watch out for sharp corners. Quite heavy, this bugger. Alright, just get this on. Alright. Okay. That there should be, my frame should be going on the chassis here. I remember it's got the indentations by the door, not too major. Should fit actually. I'm gonna have to maybe trim a bit on the sides here. Yeah, let me just trim there, both sides, and just make sure it's perfectly center. On this line at least I can check it if it's center. And I've got a bit of a lip so that I can weld this nicely to it inside the car. Just clamp this to the frame. I'd rather have a bit large and trim than have it too small and have to make plans. There we go. Should be, my first hole should be, like I said, it's not gonna go all the way in the car. We're still gonna have to make a floorboard up to the firewall there. Not a train smash. Get my ruler. Also taking in consideration man, this is a lot this side still actually. Be easier for me to trim it on the chassis. See, this part goes in the footwell where I didn't measure. I should have actually measured it. It's not a train smash. Really not a train smash. Let me quickly chop it. Now that I've got this, I'll clean the sides. It's actually a pretty good floor, and I'll just cut it straight because the back portion must be straight. I know I'm gonna have to make a plan with this bulge being so high in the car, but we'll get there when we've got it on. Quickly chop it. All right, that seems about square enough. My scrap bowl. Let me get this body in the air and test it. Yes, about there. Okay, let me get a brick. About there. You get it down. Alright, now that I've got my floor basically in place, just clamp it down. Yeah, that is lined up and that is lined up. Clamp it down, and I can tag the front part because I still need to cut out the rear for the falling setup that I did. So I'm gonna have to chop the section from here out, but first I want to get this section in, and then I'll chop somewhere there. I'll mark it from underneath and let it sit flush on its body, chassis. But first I want to tag the front part so my floor doesn't move, because we cut it to size on this car. And I'm going to have to move the car so I can work on it better. Alright. Before I weld this floor in fully, I have to have the car sitting on a chassis, bolted down to where it should sit, so it doesn't warp or pull or anything when I weld this thing and put heat to it. Now I'm just going to pump the tires quickly and move it to where I can work on it. Alright, so I've got my piece of section of floor in my 37 Ford. So where it's sitting flush now, I'm just going to put a couple of tacks to keep this thing in place, because I still need to chop out the rear section of floor where we built the falling bars and everything, so I can get this to sit flush on the chassis, and then we'll finally see the ride out. Let me get cracking. Alright, let me just tap this a bit, making sure she's flush. Gonna burn it here quickly. Alright, let me do the other side. And we'll get this floor nice and flush with the car. Once I get to tie the body perfectly down, in the front we lined up, but I want to tie it down to squeeze everything together as well. And then I can weld everything nice and flush. And then I can concentrate on building my tunnel and the front panels. Why I'm doing this, because I want to chop at the back there. I don't want the whole thing to open up like that. So I'm trying to keep everything together with the strength of the floor that we just installed, partially. Lots of dirt, that's what's battling. Okay. You see where it's nice and clean, just weld this up a bit. Okay. That should be more than sufficient to keep the car together. It's actually overkill. But there we go. Now I can chop that part out. Let me quickly just switch off the machine. Now I can chop it, get it sitting where it should sit, tie it all down, and then weld this car properly. Then it should be strong. Strong like an ox. Strong like a cattle, they used to say. Alright. Let me just check underneath how bad this is, because it's the front part of the four-link, the top bars. I just want to see roughly where they're at. Okay. I'll have to chop there. Okay. Not an issue. I knew it before I actually put the body on. I just didn't mention it yet. Just get into the back here. And now I'm going to chop a bit much. But for me to put a plate from here straight down, it's going to be easier than to try and bend the plate like that anyhow as well. And it's going to sit better over the four-link bars in the bottom here. Let me quickly get my hoist, lift up the rear end and cut it. Okay, let me quickly lob this out. It's a bit of an uncomfortable one. I'm going to also do the back section with the rust like that, so I can put a nice piece of plate like that and eliminate most of the lines. Alright, let's go down and see where she's still catching. I'm thinking okay, somewhere we're still catching on the back end. Let me have a look. I think it's probably my spring plate now. No, it ain't. This car's just full of drama. Needs to come down about a brick. Alright, I'm gonna chop that out as well. It's rotten anyhow. It's rotten anyway. So I'm just gonna chop this section out all the way past there. It's gonna be easier if I keep it square and straight. So I can just make a proper plate up to here, because this is where this car is rotten. Can't really see it holding up there, but you'll never know. We'll quickly chop it out. Thank you for watching, everybody. Like you can see, my floor section's in. Next I'll have to do the tunnel and button up the rear panel, but the rest of it is fairly in its place. The car is bolted down. It's just the front 2 bolts I have to do. Thank you for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe. Peace out, everybody.